Today's video is going to be kind of a maintenance behind the scenes kind of thing. We're going to be looking at a few things I'm going to be getting on with. First I've got to start with the Honda and do some work on that. And I'll do a separate video probably for the Suzuki if I get round to that. And just show you what goes on a little bit in preparation for the boat, because quite often it's not just all about fishing. It's about all the work that goes on behind the scenes. I mean, I tend to do most things myself, as in servicing, boat restoration, all this kind of stuff. I do it all myself because obviously it costs a lot of money to bring people in to do it. Obviously, if I get a specialised job or a job I don't want to do, maybe it's too technical, then I'd pass it on to a professional. But these sort of things, they're pretty straightforward when you get the hang of them. Right, so this engine, I'm going to just give it a quick service. I won't show all of it. If you want to see that, I'll leave a link in the description of a video I did actually servicing this engine completely. We'll just sort of fly over it a bit. Now, I got asked about anodes the other day, actually, about how often do I change my anodes. Now, you can see there's one there. There's also one on the other side. They bolt on this engine across like that. Well, the simple answer is I don't tend to change my anodes that often. This anode's been on since I had the engine, which is 5 to 6 years ago now. It's coming into its 6th year now. And as you can see, the anode's still pretty good. Now, this is because the boat is on a beach mooring. If you're in a harbour or a marina, you'll find your anodes will probably rot a lot quicker, because you've got a lot of other boats. You've got chains, moorings, pylons. You've got copper probably coming off onto the anti-fouls, and basically it just makes one big giant battery, and with the water that doesn't change so often. So you end up having a boat in one big battery. And this basically eats away at the anode very quickly. When you're on the beach, it's a lot less. You don't get these sort of problems so much. So it's very rare I change them. I mean, I changed the Suzuki last year, but that's only because the other one was a bit eaten away and I thought I'd put a nicer one. Plus the Suzuki ones, if I can show you on this little engine, it's the same on the big engine. That's all it is on these ones on the outside, are little ones like that. So, you know, they I decided I'd change that one, but this one I don't need to so often. We're also going to be changing the prop from the 4-blade to a 3-blade. Now, I've said it in the other video, when you put a socket on these nuts, make sure you put a perfect fitting one. Even if it is the right size, sometimes they can be a little bit loose depending on your socket set, how good your socket set is. And you don't want any play. If you strip the threads, you'll have a nightmare trying to get them out. You can do it with the gear sometimes as well, but I'm just going to loosen these off. And find out what condition it's like inside. One thing I did find out is when I greased the outer part, there was some corrosion on the outer part of the casing of the pump, and I put some grease on it, and when I took it apart 2 years later, the grease was still covering, and it had stopped. Well, not stopped, but you could see that it wasn't corroding like it was when it didn't have the grease on it. So, and it doesn't affect the water because it's obviously on the outside part. Right, so we just lower it down like that, and there we go. Right. Now I've just clamped this to the bench just to make it easier to work on. But you can see here, when I first had this, or the old engine particularly, this plate and here, when I took this off, it was all corroded. You had corrosion on it. But I learnt to put a little bit of grease. You don't need much. You can see it there. This is just grease here. And I put grease around the outside, just a smearing of it and a smearing there. And this has been on now for 2 to 3 years or even longer. Some of the old stuff's probably on there. And you can see that it's kept the metal perfect around this area, around where the housing of the pumps and things are. So just a little tip if you want to preserve your engine. Like I say, it might not make a huge difference. It might be perfectly fine without it, but it's always good to try and keep your engine in best condition you can. And now we're going to take the top off to get to the impeller. Sometimes it's easier just to put your bit on a small drill if you've got the bits that fit, and just unspin them, just don't do it the other way. I wouldn't necessarily use it for tightening, not fully tightening, maybe just to spin them up, but I'd always use a socket or a spanner to finish the tightening. Let me get that out of the way because that's in the way at the moment. There we go. Right. Okay. Let's see what it's like underneath. Now you've got an O-ring here as well, which goes between that and that. Just pop that back in there just so I know where all the parts are at the moment. We're going to change out a lot of this anyway, so it's not going to matter too much. You may be able to see the bolts have still got a little bit of grease on them. I always do that so they don't end up corroding themselves locked. Right. Now there's a little key in here you want to watch you don't lose. You can see the impeller's very cool. It's very hard actually. You can actually take these out each year if you don't want to replace it and it's still in good nick. You can take it out and just let it reform over winter, then put it back in again. But the way I see it is if you're going to pull it apart, you just want to replace it. But, there we go. And there's the key, you see? Little tiny metal key there. I'll put that under the camera so I know where it is. Right, let's inspect this and see what we got. Probably won't be able to pick it up on the camera, but... So this is, like I say, I think this is in its third year, although 1 year it wasn't really used much, so 2 and a bit years. And, well, there's no breaks, there's no cracks. There's a couple of lines, which aren't cracks, just lines in the plastic. So, yeah, looks fine. But obviously I'm going to change it, I'm not going to reuse this. But what you can do is you can always keep 1 or 2 of these just in a box if they're in good nick, just in case you have something fail in the summer. If you get a dodgy one or something, it just gives you a chance to switch it out. If you've got no place you can get one instantly, because that's the trouble I've had here before. I was waiting for one. In fact, I'm still waiting one from a place I ordered one 20-something years ago for another engine. They still haven't sent it. So I ended up going somewhere else and buying another one in the end, after waiting a month and losing a month of fishing. So, but no, it's actually in a lot better nick than I was even expecting for the time it's been in here. So, but anyway, it's going to be changed out, and I probably won't keep that one because I do have 2 spare new ones. So. And I have another one which is in good nick as well. Alright, there's your gasket under there as well. Now, what's it like in there? It's actually really quite good. Quite often you'll get salt deposits building up in here and blocking the channels off a bit. Even like, not fully, but they will block off the channel a little bit. Even in a worst case scenario, it'll be completely blocked. But that is actually clear. A bit of corrosion on it, but it's actually very clear. Clearest I've ever seen it, to be honest. So I'm quite happy about that. I was expecting it to be crystallized with salt in there, because we've had to take it out before when there's been salt in there, but this time it's very good. Right, so just got to check everything, make sure everything's good or nothing else needs replacing, like seals, that sort of thing. But like I say, we're not using this engine a lot these days. We do use it to start off with for a couple of months, 2 or 3 months, and then we switch out to the other one. But I like to run all my engines every year anyway. I don't like to just leave them sitting. Worst thing for an engine is leave it standing somewhere. This is just soapy water, just to get off a bit of the corrosion that's on the inside. Don't really have any on the outside, although we'll give it a quick clean up. Can't quite get down with this toothbrush. Make sure there's no salt crystals or anything building up. Get rid of the corrosion so the water flows through nicely. Just looking through all the old impellers we've thrown to one side. I mean, that's off the Suzuki. Perfectly fine. We got other ones here from other engines. God knows what engines they come from. I know that probably Honda, but the other one I think is something completely different. Probably a Yamaha I changed once on a 15 horse Yam or something. So you got that one. That one's almost like new when you look at it. It hasn't even got any lines or anything, that one. These are the old Hondas, yeah. Again, they're all imperfect. I say perfect, they're not perfect, but they're all... There's no damage to them. That one's lined. This one isn't even lined. But I keep them all because you never know. One day, if you can't get an impeller or there's a shortage or something happens in the world, then we got a whole load of spare impellers. So just keep them all. And of course, if your engine breaks down, you've got something you can put in and use temporarily till you get a replacement. So. Right. I was just checking, actually. I was checking the Honda stuff. I've got a load of Honda stuff here, seals and that, to replace the seals and that. So. Right. If you're wondering what this black is, it's anti-foul. On the old boat, the leg used to dip in the water. So I used to get weed growing on the bottom of the old engine. So when I got the newer engine, I anti-fouled it. Although it doesn't happen now. The new boat is high enough out of the water. Right, new prop. Yeah, nice. So I bought this online. I'm going farming. Put my gear oil. So we're going to put the gear oil in using that, which is designed for. Well, that's what it's for, basically, as far as I was told. Normally, I used to use the tube, but because we bought a big bottle, because we're doing both engines, we needed a pump. Well, the pump worked, but two little niggles. One doesn't hold enough oil, even though it says it's that should be about 250 to max. We end up having to put a little bit more in to reach to see the level. And the other thing is, you need to be quite strong to push this. It's amazing how much force there is on that oil pushing it in. So it takes quite a bit of force. On top of that, I taped, this is like an adapter that they put on the end to go in depending on what size you got. I put a bit of tape, bit of insulation tape, joining these two bits of plastic, purely because when you felt how much force you had to put on it, that could have quite easily parted, I reckon, under the pressure. But I didn't want to find out, so I taped it, just wrapped a bit of tape around to secure it there. This bit's alright because it locks it, but that bit they just pushed in. So, but it worked, did the job, engine's done.